Thank you so much for watching. If this story inspired you or reminded you of your own journey, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. We share powerful, real-life stories every week, stories of resilience, quiet victories, and second chances that prove it's never too late to rise again. Your support helps us continue bringing you these meaningful narratives that speak to the strength, wisdom, and dignity of experience. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and share it with someone who needs a little encouragement today. Have a story of your own? We'd love to hear it in the comments. Together, we're building a community that believes in growth, grace, and the power of perseverance. Thanks again for being here. We'll see you in the next video. Marissa, we appreciate your dedication over the years, but the company is moving in a new direction. Your position is being eliminated effective today. The sentence lingered in the air, sterile and impersonal. Across the polished oak conference table sat Vanessa Kim, shoulders squared, voice cool, posture textbook perfect. She was 38, nearly half my age, with an executive presence crafted by years at a top consulting agency and a degree from Stanford that she managed to reference at every strategic briefing. I didn't flinch. I stood, offered my hand, and said calmly, "I wish you and the company the best in this new direction." My voice betrayed nothing, not the sting of betrayal, not the fatigue of fighting to be heard, not the quiet fury curling in my gut. Vanessa exhaled, her breath releasing just slightly. She had expected emotion. Perhaps pleading, maybe defiance. What she got was composure. "You'll receive support from HR," she added. "We're offering a 6-month severance. It's more than standard policy." She delivered the words like a favor, as if I hadn't poured 27 years into Pacific Harvest Organics. As if I hadn't stood by the company through economic downturns, 2 CEO transitions, and the pandemic. As if I hadn't helped build it from a regional health startup in a shared workspace in Portland to a national brand on the shelves of every major grocery chain in the U.S. My name is Marissa Colton, and I am, or was, the Senior Vice President of Strategic Alliances. I joined Pacific Harvest in 1998, back when we had 2 tincture products and a dream of selling clean supplements at farmers markets and co-ops. Back when our logo was still a sketch on a paper napkin. I negotiated our first regional retail deal in the Pacific Northwest. I brought Wholewell and Greensprout to the table. I kept us afloat during the logistics chaos of 2020 by renegotiating supplier terms and identifying regional farms with sustainable surplus. I turned partnerships into long-term alliances. And I did it with no headlines, no ego, just results. Now, as I packed the contents of my corner office, I looked up at the framed recognitions that lined my wall. Lifetime Achievement in Wellness Partnerships. Supplier Excellence Award. Outstanding Strategic Leadership. Each plaque represented countless hours, late nights, and relationships that took years to cultivate. None of it mattered now. "Marissa?" I turned. It was Mia, my longtime assistant, standing in the doorway, eyes glassy. "This doesn't feel right." Everyone's stunned. "You built this place." I offered her a small, tired smile. "That's kind of you. But it's just business, Mia." That's what they'll say. But we both knew that wasn't the truth. Vanessa had been systematically replacing the senior leadership team since her arrival last fall. Anyone over 50 was either repurposed or retired early. My dismissal was the latest chapter in what she called strategic revitalization. Translation: out with experience, in with optics. As I walked toward the elevator, box in hand, I passed the new branding slogan etched on glass: Pacific Harvest, naturally evolving. I couldn't help but think some evolutions came at a cost. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. Vanessa's arrival had come with corporate excitement and lofty language. "She's the future," they said. At her welcome luncheon, I introduced myself. Marissa Colton. I've been with the company for 27 years. I oversee strategic partnerships. She shook my hand, smiled thinly. That's remarkable tenure. I'm excited to bring a fresh lens to how we operate. A fresh lens. At the time, it seemed harmless. But within a month, she brought in consultants from her old firm. Then came cultural assessments. Then came the purges. Now, all I could do was walk forward, dignified, unshaken, and quietly plotting what came next. It started with what they called an organizational alignment initiative, which was really just a thinly veiled review of every leadership position across the company. I noticed they lingered far longer in meetings with the younger managers, asking more exploratory questions and listening more intently to their suggestions. When it was my turn, the lead advisor leaned forward and asked, "How do you stay engaged with emerging digital platforms, and how adaptable are you to evolving tech frameworks?" It wasn't a casual inquiry. It was a subtle probe, designed to pinpoint whether age had dulled my professional edge. That evening, over grilled salmon and steamed broccoli, I shared my unease with my husband, Alan. "They're not evaluating performance," I said, moving food around my plate. "They're filtering by generation." Alan placed his hand over mine. "You've been through downturns, executive reshuffles, and market pivots. This will pass too." I wanted to believe him, but the signs were stacking up. Within days, Russell Boyd, our 63-year-old chief of logistics, was offered an early exit package. He declined and was quietly let go 2 weeks later. A 34-year-old agility strategist from Vanessa's former firm took his role. Shortly after, our longtime head of brand strategy, age 58, was eliminated in what HR called a departmental integration effort. Still, I had one card to play. 5 years earlier, after a modest inheritance from my mother and some thoughtful portfolio restructuring, I secured a quiet equity position in Harbor Point Fulfillment, the logistics company that managed nearly 3/4 of Pacific Harvest's nationwide deliveries. It wasn't just a financial decision, it was strategic foresight. I recognized our growing dependency on Harbor Point's refrigerated storage, clean ingredient handling, and rural distribution reach. Replacing that infrastructure would cost millions and cause irreversible delays. No one at Pacific Harvest knew. I had created a legal holding company called Marissa Partners to hold the shares and had fulfilled disclosure rules by listing external investments without naming specifics. It was all above board, but it remained my closely guarded backup plan. The morning after I was dismissed, I awoke at 6 a.m. out of habit. But this time, there was no commute, no inbox, no morning meeting agenda. The quiet in our home felt foreign. I made a strong pot of coffee and sat on the back deck, watching the early light spill over our small backyard garden. At 61, I was in that strange middle space, not quite ready to retire, but considered past prime in the fast-paced world of corporate wellness. The stats weren't in my favor. Executive candidates over 55 faced steeper competition, longer searches, and frequent salary compromises. Alan joined me outside with his own mug. "Have you decided your next move?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. "Not yet, but I'm far from finished." Just then, my phone vibrated on the table. A message from Harold Danner, CEO of Harbor Point Fulfillment. "Heard what happened. Dinner tonight? 6:30 at Lincoln Table." Harold and I shared a unique professional rapport. While he dealt with me as a Pacific Harvest executive, he also knew I was a key stakeholder in his company through Marissa Partners. We kept strict professional lines and never crossed into sensitive territory. That evening, at the softly lit Lincoln Table in downtown Portland, Harold greeted me with a solemn nod and a warm hug. Nearly 3 decades, and that's the send-off? That's disgraceful. As we settled into the quiet corner booth, Harold wasted no time. "Vanessa Kim reached out this morning," he began. "Wants to re-examine the terms of our current agreement. She's hoping for deeper discounts and revised service expectations." In other words, she was aiming to squeeze Harbor Point for concessions to impress the Pacific Harvest board. I nodded, unsurprised. That aligns with her pattern. Flashy shortcuts over sustainable planning. Harold swirled his glass thoughtfully. Our contract with them expires in 4 months. Normally, we'd begin renewal talks now to ensure a seamless handoff. What's your perspective? I asked, carefully separating my identity as an equity holder from my former role on their executive team. My responsibility is to HarborPoint, he said plainly. We can't continue offering premium service while they try to shave costs. It puts pressure on every part of our operation. He paused. Given your stake in the company, I thought you should know if Vanessa insists on driving down pricing, we're weighing the option of walking away. The consequences were obvious. Pacific Harvest relied on HarborPoint's cold chain logistics, specialized handling, and on-time reliability to meet retailer expectations. If that system collapsed, store buyers would likely shift shelf space to competitors with consistent delivery. I took a quiet breath. Harold, I respect whatever decision you make for HarborPoint. But I want to run something by you. He set his glass down. Go ahead. What if we built something different, something smarter from the outset? I leaned forward slightly. A wellness brand designed for today's market, grounded in ethical sourcing, modern supply chains, and a fresh story. No legacy processes, no outdated internal battles. Harold's face changed. He was no longer just hearing me, he was evaluating potential. You might be onto something, he said slowly. Very compelling. 2 weeks after our dinner, I received a hushed phone call from Mia, my former assistant. Marissa, do you have a minute? I need to talk, and I can't say much from the office. I moved into my home workspace. What's happening? It's chaos here, she whispered. Vanessa's making sweeping changes, new branding, adjusted formulations, reworked ad strategies. And now, there's panic about fulfillment. Core orders are delayed. I kept my voice level. What's the issue with shipping? HarborPoint isn't agreeing to the new terms she sent over, Mia said. They're holding to the current agreement and refusing to renegotiate early. Vanessa thought they'd cave. Now she's scrambling. That lined up with what Harold had already shared. He'd been updating me quietly, her aggressive tactics were backfiring. She even suggested terminating HarborPoint's contract early, only to realize no other provider could match the infrastructure without risking massive distribution gaps. That sounds stressful, I said simply. There was an unplanned board meeting yesterday, Mia added. Vanessa tried to keep it under wraps, but I overheard her assistant booking the room. They're reviewing alternate logistics options and evaluating emergency measures. After the call, I spent the afternoon reaching out to my network, contacts in health retail, logistics, and organic sourcing. The wellness industry had evolved rapidly. Shoppers wanted full ingredient transparency, clear environmental ethics, and purpose-driven brands, not just pretty packaging or influencer campaigns. And that's where opportunity lived, not in reviving what had been stripped from me, but in building something new and better. The situation at Pacific Harvest had created a rare opportunity, one where a forward-looking company without legacy baggage could step in and thrive. That Thursday, I sat down with Lucas Chen, a gifted formulation specialist I had worked with for years. He'd been quietly sidelined in Vanessa Kim's internal shuffle. Lucas, how are you doing with all the changes? I asked as we settled into a quiet booth at a cafe near MT Tabor Park. He gave a resigned smile. They moved me to a strategic innovation unit, which is basically a polite way of keeping me out of the way. No real tasks, no influence. Just waiting. What if you didn't have to wait? I asked. What if we started something new without the politics or red tape? His brow lifted. I'd say it depends on who's leading it and what the vision is. I slid a slim folder across the table. Inside was the initial blueprint for Haven Naturals, a company dedicated to honest wellness, personalized products, ethical supply chains, clean formulations, and absolute ingredient transparency. I'm forming a team, I said. People who know the industry inside and out, but who are ready to reshape it. I need someone to lead R&D. Lucas reviewed the plan in silence, then looked up. This is solid. But launching something this ambitious won't be cheap. I've already secured financial backing, I replied. I didn't reveal that Maridun Partners, my own investment firm, was the majority backer. Nor did I elaborate on the preliminary distribution framework I had access to, courtesy of Harbor Point. By the time we left the cafe, Lucas had committed to join as Haven's Director of Product Strategy, effective once he finalized his exit. Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly assembled a dream team. 5 seasoned professionals, each displaced or demoralized by Vanessa's corporate shift, signed on. From regulatory experts to supply chain veterans, every one of them brought key knowledge and a passion for doing things right. Meanwhile, Pacific Harvest's logistics troubles were escalating. Through trusted colleagues, I learned that several national retailers had been alerted to possible shipping disruptions. These alerts weren't rumors, they were official notifications sent by Harbor Point, as required by contractual duty, to prepare buyers for potential delays. Panic set in. Procurement teams began reaching out to Pacific Harvest's reps for explanations. But the responses they received were generic and evasive. With shelf space at a premium, this kind of uncertainty could cause buyers to reduce orders or, worse, switch to competing brands with proven reliability. Vanessa's hardline negotiation tactics had backfired in full. By pushing too hard for short-term savings, she had jeopardized the very distribution network Pacific Harvest depended on. Then, a month after I'd cleared out my office, I received a surprising phone call. Elaine Markham, chairwoman of Pacific Harvest's board, requested a confidential meeting. We had always respected one another, even if we didn't always align. Though she had ultimately supported Vanessa's leadership overhaul, I agreed to meet her at a quiet vineyard restaurant just outside the city. Elaine looked drawn, her energy dimmed. "Thank you for agreeing to see me, Marissa," she said as we sat down. "I know you have every reason to be distant right now." "I gave 27 years to Pacific Harvest," I replied, my tone measured. "You don't just turn that off." She nodded, quietly. There was more to this conversation, and I had a feeling it wasn't just about regrets. "Emotions aside, this is a complex situation," Elaine said, folding her hands. "And frankly, I believe you're the only one who can offer real clarity." I met her eyes. "What kind of clarity are we talking about?" She leaned forward, her voice lower now. "Our logistics operation is unraveling. Harbor Point just delivered official notice they won't renew the contract when it expires in 90 days. They've also refused every revised proposal we've sent." I kept my tone even. "That sounds problematic." "It's beyond that," she admitted. "It's existential. We've contacted half a dozen logistics firms, but no one can match Harbor Point's infrastructure, especially when it comes to cold chain management for our botanical lines." "And Vanessa?" I asked, genuinely wondering how she was spinning this to the board. Elaine exhaled slowly. "She's insisting we can build our own internal network." But the board reviewed the projections. It would take 2 years, a full systems overhaul, and a capital investment we simply don't have. "Then why come to me?" I asked, although I already knew. "You were the architect of our relationship with Harbor Point. They respected you. Harold Danner won't even respond to Vanessa's outreach, but I'm confident he'd speak with you." She studied my face, waiting. "Would you consider returning purely in a consulting capacity to help us stabilize this?" The irony nearly made me laugh. Pushed aside in favor of new energy and now summoned to clean up the fallout. "I appreciate you thinking of me," I said smoothly, "but I'm currently immersed in a new project." Her brow arched. "What kind of project?" "I've launched a wellness company, Haven Naturals. We're focusing on customized health supplements and ethical supply chains." I smiled faintly. "We've already secured a national distribution framework." Elaine blinked. "With Harbor Point?" "Among others," I replied, leaving just enough unsaid. I watched the color slowly fade from her face as understanding dawned. "Marissa, is there something more I should be aware of regarding your connection to Harbor Point?" "I've always maintained professional relationships with our key partners," I replied, my tone neutral. Before she could dig further, my phone vibrated. A message from Harold. Riverstream Retail wants a meeting to discuss Haven Naturals. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Confirm availability. Riverstream accounted for a significant portion of Pacific Harvest's distribution footprint. Their interest in my startup was no coincidence. It was a signal. I stood. I should head out. I've got an early meeting. Elaine rose too, looking weary. If you change your mind about helping us, the board would sincerely appreciate your support. I'll give it some thought, I said politely. But right now, my focus is on the future. I let the words linger. Her eyes flickered at the deliberate echo, my quiet return of the same, fresh perspective, language that had been used to dismiss me. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. That evening, news began circulating across wellness industry networks. One of the country's largest retailers had started exploratory talks with a rising new player, Haven Naturals. The same retailer that once relied heavily on Pacific Harvest. And this was just the beginning. In a last-ditch effort to contain the unraveling distribution chaos, Vanessa Kim unveiled a sweeping proposal. Pacific Harvest would establish its own nationwide logistics infrastructure. The plan involved a massive capital raise that would dilute current investor equity and projected an 18-month timeline to become operational. Investors weren't impressed. Shares tumbled 17% within 24 hours. I observed from a distance, focused instead on shaping Haven Naturals into something sustainable and forward-thinking. We had just signed a lease for a sunlit office suite in Portland's Pearl District and completed the hiring of 15 high-caliber professionals, many of whom had once held leadership roles at Pacific Harvest before being replaced or restructured under Vanessa's reign. Our product development was finalized, a line of adaptive supplements tailored to consumer health goals, with full ingredient traceability and climate-conscious packaging. Thanks to our collaboration with HarborPoint, our logistics were purpose-built for speed, reliability, and scale. Unlike Pacific Harvest, we weren't trying to modernize a dated system. We were starting fresh with precision and foresight. In the middle of all this, I received an unexpected call. Nathaniel Brooks, the founder of Pacific Harvest and former CEO, requested to meet. Though retired for 5 years, he still owned a substantial portion of the company and held the honorary title of Board Chairman Emeritus. Marissa, he said over the phone, this can't wait. We met the next afternoon at his hillside property overlooking the Willamette Valley. Even at 72, Nathaniel's presence commanded attention, his voice sharp, his demeanor unwavering. What's happening to the company I built? He asked bluntly as we sat in his library. The market's reacting badly, our biggest retailers are losing confidence, and I hear HarborPoint won't even take Vanessa's calls. You built that relationship. What went wrong? I gave him the unvarnished version, how Vanessa had methodically dismantled the executive team, how seasoned talent had been pushed out in favor of younger hires with more style than substance, and how her aggressive cost-cutting had jeopardized key partnerships. Reckless, he muttered. Experience matters. That's always been true, no matter how flashy the new ideas are. Then came the inevitable pivot. And now I hear you're building a new venture, with HarborPoint's support no less? I met his eyes. Years ago, I invested in HarborPoint. It was a private financial decision, fully disclosed and compliant with company policy. As for Haven Naturals, it's my new path. After being forced out, I wasn't ready to fade quietly. He studied me for a long moment. I always told the board you saw more than just your lane. You understood the broader strategy, operations, partnerships, brand, all of it. He leaned forward. Be honest with me, Marissa. Did you engineer this collapse? I chose my words carefully. I made decisions to safeguard my future, just as you once advised me to do. His expression shifted, the corners of his mouth twitching into a grin. Smart. He leaned back. So, where do we go from here? The company's floundering, and you're positioned perfectly. I paused before answering. My focus is on building something better. But I don't want to see Pacific Harvest fail. There are good people still on that team. Nathaniel nodded. There's a board meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Vanessa's position is being reviewed. If leadership changes, and I mean real change, would Harbor Point even consider reopening the discussion? I looked out toward the horizon, weighing the question. Then I answered. I can't speak on Harbor Point's behalf, I told Nathaniel carefully. They're acting in alignment with their long-term goals. That said, new leadership could open the door to renewed discussions. He smirked at my choice of words. Renewed discussions, he repeated, clearly appreciating the diplomacy. I still carry weight with several board members. Maybe it's time to use it. Driving home through the winding roads just outside town, I felt the shift. This wasn't just about personal vindication anymore. It was quickly becoming something much larger, a possible shift in the natural products landscape, and I happened to be at its center. 2 days later, headlines lit up across business outlets. Pacific Harvest CEO steps down following supply chain collapse. Founder returns to guide company through crisis. Only 3 months after I had been forced out, Vanessa Kim had been dismissed by the very board that had once championed her approach. In her place, Nathaniel Brooks emerged from retirement to take temporary command. His first statement to the press referenced a return to foundational values and a renewed commitment to operational integrity. I received a flood of texts from former coworkers, most expressing some form of relief or quiet satisfaction. Mia, my former assistant, sent a single word, redemption. She then added, "Are you coming back?" But that chapter was closed for me. Haven Naturals was just 1 week from its full-scale launch, and we were already ahead of projections. Over 60% of our first-year sales target had been secured through pre-launch agreements with major retail chains. I had no desire to return to the past. My phone rang. Nathaniel again. I assume the updates have reached you, he said with characteristic brevity. I have. Congrats on stepping back in. Only for a limited time, he replied. But that brings me to my next ask. I'd like a meeting with Harold Danner as soon as possible. I don't speak for Harold. No, he said, but you can bridge the conversation. Marissa, I'm not asking you to step away from what you're building. Frankly, I respect it. But there's no reason our companies can't both thrive. The goal should be healthy competition, not collapse. He wasn't wrong. My intention had never been to dismantle Pacific Harvest. My aim had been to show what happens when experience is cast aside without thought. I'll reach out, I agreed. But the final call will be his. That's all I ask, Nathaniel said. Then added, and Marissa, for the record, the board now fully understands what they lost when they let you go. A quiet satisfaction settled over me. A rare kind of closure. 1 month later, I stood before a packed crowd at the Natural Wellness Expo in Anaheim, California. Haven Naturals was making its public debut. Our booth was busy from morning till close, drawing attention from media outlets, health chains, and potential collaborators. We offer customized wellness with uncompromising transparency, I told a crowd of professionals. Health is personal. Your supplements should be too. Across the venue, I spotted Pacific Harvest's modest display. Nathaniel was present, along with a new, more balanced leadership team, some returning veterans, some of Vanessa's more practical hires. Eventually, Harbor Point and Pacific Harvest had reached revised terms not as favorable as before, but sufficient to avoid total breakdown. Harold had made the call on his own terms. And me? I had never felt more certain of the path I'd chosen. The emphasis on inclusion, I realized, had subtly shaped Nathaniel's new leadership style. After my keynote, he approached with a handshake and a genuine smile. Well done, he said. You've built something impressive here. This team you've assembled, top tier. I nodded in appreciation. Thank you. How are things progressing at Pacific Harvest? Steadier, he replied. The board greenlit a phased plan, maintaining Harbor Point for essential logistics while slowly developing internal systems. We're calling it a blended solution now, not a reactionary fix. I couldn't help but chuckle. Framing makes all the difference. It does, he agreed with a sigh. Hard lessons, learned late. He hesitated before adding, Vanessa's moved on. Joined a young company up in Seattle. Apparently, they're excited about her modern outlook. The irony wasn't lost on either of us, and we shared a quiet laugh. As he moved on, Lucas stepped beside me. That looked complicated. Not really, I said. It felt like a chapter closing the right way. No resentment. Just recognition. In that moment, I understood something clearly. This wasn't about tearing anything down. It was about proving I had always belonged at the table. My path from loyal executive to industry leader wasn't marked by revenge. It was a quiet, powerful affirmation of value that should have never been doubted.